Hi, today we're going to take a look at Kazbek. This library contains two Georgian Armenian instruments. We've got a duduk and a salamuri. So these are both wind instruments. So the interface is really quite minimalist and quite straightforward. Let's start over here. So on the left hand side we have a menu which divides up the interface into all these different sections. If I start at the top with the mixer, we've just got volume control, pan control, and fine tuning. The next one is just velocity. Here you can edit the velocity curve. This is very similar to the other libraries I've shown recently. We can add nodes by clicking and dragging, remove them by right clicking on them, and change the curve between two nodes by hovering the mouse over and using the scroll wheel. So just to let you hear what it sounds like, and you can see the velocity move as I play. If we go down now to expression, this is just a volume curve. And currently it's being controlled by CC11, so we've got the slider here. And that slider has been assigned through MIDI learn to CC11, so that's my expression pedal. So if I right click on here and remove the CC, I'll move my expression pedal now and nothing moves. We can move the slider freely with the mouse. If I right click and select learn MIDI CC and move my expression pedal, it's now being controlled by CC11 again. You can shift click on the slider and type in a value. It doesn't display very well because the slider's so narrow, so you just have to sort of be aware of what you're typing in, and you hit enter and it'll set the value. If we go to the Dynamics tab, we've got pretty much the same thing. This is set to be controlled by the mod wheel at the moment. We've also got these two buttons above. We've got velocity control, so that means you can use velocity to control the initial dynamic. And then it can be further controlled using the Dynamics controller. In this case, it's the mod wheel. So Dynamics is a timbral difference as well as a volume difference. We've got the breath controller mode. So this is very similar to what you may have seen in some of the other videos I've done. So with the breath controller mode, I'm trying to make the instrument more realistic, and this is especially useful if you're using a breath controller. In this mode, the dynamic CC acts as the breath being blown into the instrument, and the instrument won't make a sound until you blow some air into it, just like a real woodwind instrument. So if I hold down a few keys now, there's no sound coming out. But if I raise the Dynamics controller, as soon as it hits a value of 10 or more, it's going to start the note playing. And then once I lower it below 10, it cuts the note off. We've got vibrato control, so for this we've actually got an XY pad type setup. So you can move this little dot around, and this is great if you've got a touch screen. I'm just doing it with the mouse at the moment. So along the x-axis we've got vibrato intensity, that's the amount of vibrato. And on the y-axis we've got vibrato rate or vibrato speed. In the Legato tab, we've just got one control, and this controls the transition gain. So when we play legato transitions, we can control the sound of the transition that happens between the two main notes. So we'll come back to the legato in just a second. Finally, we've got the settings tab. We've got a few settings in here, and what you have in here will vary depending on if you're using the standalone version or the plug-in version of the instrument. In the MIDI channel, we can select which channels the instrument responds to. By default, it's selected on all channels. MIDI automation shows which CCs have been assigned to what controls. And in the About tab, we've just got some general information about the instrument. So let's go back to Legato. Both of the instruments in this library are monophonic. They have legato transitions as you play in a legato style. So if you're holding one note down while you play the next note, it's going to give you a legato transition. If you just play one note after another, you won't get that transition. You can play chords. It's got a chord detector. And it tries to differentiate between a legato transition and a chord, so that's quite useful for sometimes when you're composing. I wouldn't use it if you were doing a live performance because it might detect the chord incorrectly as a legato transition and you might get some unexpected results. Along with the legato, we of course have the usual Retrigger feature, so this is where you hold down one note and you keep it held down while you press and release another, and this is great for doing trills. And we can hear the transition in there, so I'll probably turn that down a bit. That seemed a bit loud for me. So that's the basic instrument. We've got the preset browser, of course, where you can add your own presets, rename existing presets, save presets, delete presets, search for presets, and add presets to a favourites list. So all the usual stuff you'll find in these new libraries I've been releasing. If we look quickly at the keyboard here, we can see the illuminated keys show the playable range of the currently loaded instrument. Down here we've got some yellow keys. They show where we've got ornaments, so there's some pre-recorded ornaments for both instruments. So the duduk has pre-recorded trill ornaments. Let's now look at the salamuri. So for both instruments we've got a normal preset and then a breath control preset. The breath control one just has some slightly different CC assignments set up, and it's also got the breath control button enabled. So both these instruments are designed from a performance point of view, like a lot of the instruments I create. So the idea is there's no pre-built articulations, although we do have the pre-recorded ornaments, but you can create any articulation you want through performance, just like a real player would, or at least that's the idea. So to play long notes, just hold the key down. The samples aren't looped, so they'll end after an appropriate length of time. To play shorter notes, just release the key earlier. If you play at a softer velocity, you're going to get a longer, smoother attack. And the harder the velocity, the harder the attack. And a higher dynamic will also produce a more forceful attack. So using a combination of velocity and dynamic, you can create a whole range of different attacks. So we have a slightly bigger range of ornaments on the salamuri. So down the bottom end we have runs and sort of little slide things. And then we have bend ornaments on the green keys. And then on the red keys we have these little sort of up and down runs. If you hold down your sustain pedal or activate another controller assigned to CC64, when you play a legato transition, you'll actually play a smooth glide, and the harder the velocity you play the second note, the faster the glide will be. Now, it's not necessarily going to be realistic to the real instrument, so you'll have to sort of use it carefully if you're trying to go for realism. And you can of course use your pitch bend wheel as well if you have one. Thank you for joining me in this quick walkthrough of Kazbek. This library is available at librawave.com, links are in the video description on YouTube. As usual, if you have any questions, suggestions or comments, please leave them below the video or send me a message through one of the many social media places you may find me. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.